Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi alladhi wa kafa wa salatu wa salamu ala man la nabiyya ba'dah. Amma ba'd. Respected listeners, welcome to the third session of the reading of Irshad al-Muluk, Suluk, a book translated originally from Arabic into Farsi by Hazrat Gangohi rahmatullah alayh, and then translated into Urdu by Mawlana Rashid Ahmad rahmatullah alayh. And something that's compulsory reading within the Khanqahs connected to Hazrat Shaykh al-Hadith, Mawlana Zakir rahmatullah alayh. Alhamdulillah, it's the third session, and the discussion so far has been on various aspects of tasawwuf. And in the last session, we discussed the need for a sheikh, and also for the sheikh and the Sufi to adhere to Shariat and also to various aspects of Shariat completely. Continuing on with this theme, Hazrat Gangohi rahmatullah alayhi, he writes that Ahkam Shariat kisi waqt sakit nahi. The title of the next section is that the rules and regulations pertaining to Shariat does not fall that the Sufi is not absolved from fulfilling the ahkam and the injunctions of Shariat. He says, Neez ummat ka us par ijma hai, is the consensus of the ummah कि हक ताला ने जो कुछ कुरान में बंदों पर फर्ज फरमाया है, that whatever Allah Almighty has made incumbent within the Quran Kareem, और जो कुछ हदीस से सबूत के दर्जे पे पहुंच गया है, and whatever has been established from the hadith, उसकी फर्जियत व वजूब बंदों पर लाजिम है. Its obligation, the fard of it and the wajib of it is necessary upon the slave. और अकल व हवास होते हुए वली हो या सिद्दीक, and regardless of whether a person is a wali or a siddiq, aql hawas hote hue, in spite of when he is in a situation that he is full of sense, he has his mind is intact, wa hawas hote hue, and he's also got his senses, kaise hi martaba kamal par kyun na pahuncha ho, regardless of which level of perfection in his connection to Allah Almighty and his tasawwuf and suluk he's reached, किसी हाल में भी, in whichever situation he may be, किसी को उससे न पीछे हटना जायज़ है. It's not permissible for one to withdraw from fulfilling the ahkam of Shariat as established in the Quran and established in the Hadith. Hazrat Gangohi rahmatullah alayhi also mentions, and he says, और न कमी बेशी का किसी को इख्तियार है, nobody has any choice and no option to decrease what's been commanded. So for example, if a person turns around and says, instead of 5 salah I shall only be doing 3 salah, no, this person is a great wali and is someone who's reached the highest pinnacles of tasawwuf, then it's not permissible for him to do that. The ahkam of Shariat is completely obligatory on every single individual, especially the Sufi. Hazrat Gangohi rahmatullah alayhi continues and he says, और सालिक किसी मकाम पर क्यों न पहुंचे, regardless of which station, which high level the salik and the Sufi reaches, Shariat का adab उससे साकित नहीं हो सकता. The respect of Shariat is, he is not absolved from respecting Shariat completely. चुनांचे जाहिर है कि अंबिया अलैहिस्सलाम से ज़्यादा मर्तबा किसका हो सकता है. Therefore he then provides an example and he says that the level of the prophets अलैहिस्सलाम, their level was the highest. There's nobody that can reach their level. बाई फजीलत ये हजरात शरीयत के मुकल्लफ रहे. In spite of this these excellent qualities of this and this superior station of theirs, ye hazrat, these individuals, the anbiya, the prophets, they also remain confined in shariat. They follow the shariat and the shariat that they all brought individually for their ummah. They remain confined with fulfilling the rules and regulations of the shariat. Fir dusro ka to kya puchna. So what can be said about the other Sufis? So this is a theme that continuously appears in the writings of Gangohi rahmatullah alayh, within which he's saying that the tasawwuf that our akabir, the tasawwuf of the real Sufis, the tasawwuf of those connected to the various salasils of Hazrat Haji Sahib rahmatullah alayh, and also other salasil as well, Shariat is absolutely important. There is no tasawwuf without Shariat, and Shariat and tasawwuf go hand in hand. Regardless of what station, on what high level a person actually reaches in his tasawwuf and his connection to Allah Almighty, the ahkam of Shariat and the rules and injunctions of Shariat remain obligatory on every single individual every step of the way. बल्कि बात यह है कि जितना किसी का मर्तबा ज़्यादा होता है इसी कदर अहकाम शरिया का उससे मुताला बढ़ जाता है. He says rather the situation is such that as a person progresses in his connection to Allah Almighty and his rank raises, then as he raises, the need for him to follow Sharia also increases. He is required even more to follow the little minute issues of Sharia to the T. और उनके छोड़ने पर मुआखज़ा व इताब खुदाबंदी ज़्यादा होता है. And if you were to abandon anything, any aspect of Shariat, then the divine Allah Almighty will take hold of him, and the questioning for Allah Almighty will be greater. खुलासा यह है, in summary he says, कि अमल की दुरुस्ती सिहत इल्म के बगैर हो ही नहीं सकती. The amal and the correct amal can only for the amals to be correct, sound knowledge is necessary. Without sound knowledge, you are not going to be able to correct your amal. और जो इसे खिलाफ समझा हुआ हो, and those that consider have understood things contrary to this, who think that in connecting to Allah Almighty and to be able to do the amal, knowledge is not necessary, वो भी उसके जहल की खराबी है. Then this view that Shariat and ilm is not necessary, this is also stemming from their own ignorance. कि इल्म की ज़रूरत भी इल्म के बगैर समझनी दुश्वार है. That the need for knowledge can only be understood with a better knowledge. इसीलिए सुहेल तुश्तरी रहमतुल्लाह अलैह फरमाते हैं कि मुतकब्बिर और गाफिल और ज़ईफ दीन वाले कारी और जाहिल सूफी की सोहबत से तीर की तरह भागना चाहिए. And then Mawlana Gangohi rahmatullah alayhi mentions the call of a very famous early Sufi, Suhail Tushtari rahmatullah alayhi, who says that the Qari, and inside some of the writings of Tasawwuf, especially in Arabic, when they refer to Qari, they mean the Alim. That the Alim who is mutakabbir, who is proud, or ghafil, he's heedless, he's not constantly reminding himself of Allah Almighty, he's not in the dhikr of Allah Almighty, he's not in the remembrance of Allah Almighty, he's proud, so he's absorbed in some sins, in great sin of the heart. Ghafil, he's heedless, he's not thinking of Allah Almighty, he's not connecting to Allah Almighty. Za'if deen wala, and he's also weak in his religion. So this is one type of person. So he's an alim, but unfortunately his condition of his heart isn't what it should be. He's weak, he's mutakabbir, he's got pride, which is some of our mashaykh say is the amrath. He's ghafil, he's also not connected to Allah Almighty. So this is one individual. And the second person is Jahil Sufi. That is Sufi who's Jahil. The Sufi, the person who's connected, who's traversing the path of Tasawwuf. In reality, he's not really a Sufi, but he's also Jahil. He has very little knowledge of Shariat and of the ulum maqsuda, of the knowledge that he needs to know. So these two individuals की सोहबत से, the company of these two individuals तीर की तरह भागना चाहिए. One should avoid them the way that the arrow flies by them. Just totally avoid these individuals. कि इनके पास बैठना भी दीन मुजर्रत से खाली नहीं है. That to sit close to them is also something that would harm one in one's religion. Mawlana Shafi'i Thanvi rahmatullah alayhi in his very fantastic book Shariat and Tariqat, Shariat and Tariqat, he mentions towards the end some advice. It's not included in al-Muluk, but I think it's very important, and I thought I'd just mention it here. That this advice was the advice of Shah Waliullah Muhaddis Dalwi rahmatullah alayhi. So he's an 18th century great hadith scholar and also Sufi and alim. All the isnad of hadith from the subcontinent go back through to Shah Waliullah Muhaddis Dalwi rahmatullah alayhi. And he says in Hazrat Thanvi rahmatullah alayhi quotes him, he says, Bila zarurat wa maslahat dini aghniya maslahat dini aghniya se sohbat na rakhe. He says that the Sufi shouldn't remain without any necessity or any expediency related to religion, remain in the company of those that are wealthy. Just avoid them. Sufiyane Jahil, those Sufis who are ignorant, or Jahilane Abid, and those worshippers who indulge themselves in great worship, but are also at the same time they lack knowledge, they're jahil. Ulama khushk, and those ulama who are khushk, they're very dry, they're not connected to Allah Almighty. Or jo muhaddithin ahle fiqh se adawat rakhe, and those muhaddith and hadith scholars who hold enmity towards the ulama of fiqh. Or jo log kalam mein himak rakhte hai, and those scholars who are completely absorbed in kalam, in the science of अकीदा, उन सब की सोहबत से बचे, avoid their company. और ऐसे शख्स के पास बैठे, remain in the company of such a person जो आलिम, who's an alim, सूफी हो, he's also Sufi at the same time. दुनिया का तारिक, he's avoiding the world. He's a zahid, a true zahid in the true sense, in that he's not running and hankering after the world. Zikrullah ittibai sunnat ka ashik ho. He is someone who is completely fond of zikr of Allah Almighty and following the sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Aur madahib mein ek dusre par tarjeeb na de. In terms of the madahib, he doesn't give preference over one madhab over another, but he considers them all to be equal and correct. कि हनफियों का मज़हब सबसे अच्छा है, that he feels or he says that the Hanafi madhab is the best, or he turns around and says that the Shafis are just or even greater than the Hanafis, etc. So he's someone who's of equilibrium, balance. अपने मज़हब पर अमल करता रहे, he sticks to his मज़हब. न सूफियों के तुर्क में से किसी एक को दूसरे पर तरजीह दे. At the same time, as a Sufi, he doesn't give preference over one tariq over another. So within Tasawwuf, we have the Chishtis, we have the Naqshbandis, we have the Qadris, Suhrawardis, and many other tariqas. He doesn't give preference of one tariqa over another. के चिश्तियाँ की निस्बत बड़े जोर की है, or in that he might turn around and say that the nisbat or the connection to Allah Almighty found within the Chishti Sufis is extremely strong. दूसरा के, another one says Naqshbandiयों में इत्तिबा सुन्नत ज़्यादा है, that the इत्तिबा sunnat in the Naqshbandis is greater. और इसी किस्म के खुराफात and this type of useless talk से बचे. He avoids this type of useless talk. जो लोग मगलूबुल हाल, so he says you should avoid these type of individuals completely. And he also says जो लोग मगलूबुल हाल है या किसी तावील से कोई अमर करते हैं, those people who are completely absorbed in their hal, in that they've lost their sense, या किसी तावील से कोई अमर करते हैं जो उस शख्स के नज़दीक खिलाफ सुन्नत है, or he might do some ta'wil. I think I'll probably need to explain that on a different occasion, but I'll read the Urdu. और कोई अमर कर किसी तावील से कोई अमर करते हैं जो इस शख्स के नज़दीक खिलाफ सुन्नत है, उनको बुरा बोला ना कहे. Don't speak against these individuals. और खुद ही करे जो कवायद शरिया के मुवाफिक हो, and himself act upon that which is in accordance with the Shariat. So this is some advice by Shah Waliyullah Muhaddis Dalvi, which really resonates what's been written here in Irshad al-Muluk. The next section is a bit long. It's all about the knowledge and the sciences, which is of the purpose. I won't go into that today. I'll call it the day here. Jazakallah khair. I'll just quickly summarize what's been said so far. So basically what Mawlana Gangohi Rahmatullah Alayhi says is that the Ahkam Shariat, the rulings of Shariat, an individual, the Sufi, is not absolved from following the Ahkam of Shariat at any one time. And he says that whatever has been established from the Quran, whatever has been established from the Hadith, is completely obligatory. Though that's which is obligatory from the Quran and Hadith is obligatory on the Sufi at every single time. And when the person is of sound mind, his senses are sound, regardless if he's a wali or a siddiq, and regardless of which high level he's actually reached, and regardless of what the condition of his heart is, he has to follow the Shariat at all times. He has no right to decrease or increase or do any type of alterations within Shariat itself, and this is completely obligatory upon the Salik. And then at the same time he says that the Anbiya alayhimus salam, when they came into the earth, they also followed Shariat at all times. They were not absolved from following Shariat. So likewise, those people who have those Muslims who have reached the high pinnacles of in connection to Allah Almighty, whatever kamal and perfection they've reached, they also are not absolved from following Shariat. And then he says that the person, as he progresses in his connection to Allah Almighty, then the ask of him in terms of following Sharia increases. And when he fails to follow even a minute aspect of Shariat, then the mu'akhadha, the reckoning in the eyes of Allah Almighty increases. And then he says that the summary of everything that's been mentioned so far is that in order for our actions to be correct, knowledge is important. Without knowledge, actions cannot be correct. And then he says that anybody who's considered the contrary to be correct, yani you can follow the actions, you can do tasawwuf without ilm, then this is actually the root cause of this is ignorance in itself, and the removal of that ignorance can only happen through knowledge. And then he mentions the call of Suhail Tushtari rahmatullah alayh, who says that one should avoid the sohbat and the company of the proud, ghafil, heedless, one who is absent-minded when it comes to remembrance of Allah Almighty, and the person who's weak in religion. So an alim who's proud, who's ghafil, he's not mindful of the remembrance of Allah Almighty, and he's also weak in his religion. And at the same time, he should also remain and abstain from the company of the jahil Sufi, the ignorant Sufi, and he should avoid them in the way that the arrow whizzes through the air, and he should not even sit with them, because sitting with them, there will be some sort of harm in just by sitting with them. That brings me to the end of today's lesson. Inshallah, see you next week. Jazakallah khair for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. La ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.